Hi, welcome back to my channel, or for those of you who are new to me, I am Sunny, and it's nice to meet you. Hope that if you enjoy my video today that you will hit the subscribe button and the little bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a video. So today is Monday. Most of you regular subscribers know that's story time. I got myself a new glass made for sunny days. And so today's video is going to be one of my favorite stories. And sorry that I get an itchy nose every now and then. You might notice that I'll get an itchy nose. And I have to say that my mom always said, if your nose itches, it means you're going to kiss a fool. So I don't know who's the fool I'm going to be kissing, but anyhow. So let me get a little sip of water before we begin. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the time so I don't keep you too long today. However, this is kind of an intricate story because I have to give you a little bit of a backstory on this, in the fact that it happened about somewhere around 78, 79. And back in those days, for all you youngsters that don't remember or weren't even around during those days, talk about angels being around us, here among us, was just not really happening in those days the way it is nowadays. So I wasn't influenced by anybody's little stories, and it really wouldn't have mattered because there was a lot of witnesses to this story. So anyhow, it started out in one evening. We used to have friends, guys that were away from home for the first time in the Navy, and they'd come over for dinner, and this would all be so spontaneous. They wouldn't even call ahead of time. They'd just come on over, and we'd have dinner, and we'd listen to music. Maybe we would study our Bibles together, and just, chit chat and just basically be a family. My husband and I at the time were in our 20s, and these young boys were probably all 18. Away from home for the first time and very missing their family. So at any rate, one night, I believe it was Dooley, called, and he said, is it okay if I bring somebody that we met with us? And I said, sure. So they brought this gentleman with them, tall, kind of sandy hair, kind of slightly, what a lot of people would say, a goofy looking smile on his face. And we enjoyed meeting him and having dinner with him. And at the end of the night, all the young men had to go back to their ships at Pearl Harbor, and they would walk out the back gate and they could make it quickly there to their ships before their curfew. And he wasn't in the Navy, so he didn't have anywhere to go. And I guess he was portraying himself as, he didn't really lie. He just said he didn't have anywhere to go for the night. When I asked him, I said, oh, so should we drop you off somewhere? I'd be happy to drive you to your house. He said, well, I really don't have anywhere to go tonight. So my husband and I had a spare bedroom, and we said, oh, please stay with us. We have a spare bedroom, got a bed in there, you're welcome to sleep in there, and then in the morning I'll get you some breakfast. My husband gets up early because in the military he had to be at work at 7:30, and he said, laughed, oh, that's fine. So he got up in the morning, and I fed him, and we all had breakfast together. And then I drove my husband to work, and I drove this gentleman off the base. And I can't really recall where I let him out. But he just had me let him out not too far from the base. Let me have a little sip here. So, any rate, that was the last I heard of him. And a couple of weeks later, it was a Sunday afternoon. We had just gotten back from church, and all the gang was hanging out at my house. And I got a phone call, and they said, Mrs. Rutter, so-and-so said he knows you. I can't for the life of me remember what name he was using. And I said, the name doesn't really ring a bell. Hold on, let me ask the guys. So I hollered out into the back living room, and I said, hey, do I know anybody named so-and-so? And gave the name, and the guys hollered back, oh yeah, that was the guy we brought to dinner the other night. So I said, oh, I guess I do know. And the phone call had come in from the Halava jail. And they said, well, we have a young man here, and he says he knows you, and he's going to be staying with us for 2 or 3 days for a minor thing. And he's going to need a few items, and we just were wondering if you would be so kind as to bring the items to him. And I said, of course I would. Okay, and so they put him on the phone, and he gave me his little list, and he thanked me profusely for doing this for him. And I said, oh, it's perfectly fine, I'm happy to do it. So it was things like toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, bar soap, little toiletry stuff like that. So I said, well, I'm going to run over to the commissary, and I'll pick these up, and then I'll try to make it over there within an hour or an hour and a half. And I said, since one of the things he had told me was a disposable razor, and I said, okay, now I've never known anybody in jail before, so please hand the phone back to the guy that works there. I need to ask him a few questions, but I'll see you soon. And he said, okay, thank you again. Kept saying how much he appreciated. And I said, oh, it's perfectly fine. I'm happy to do it. And so the warden got back. I don't know if it was a warden, whoever works at the jail, okay? He got back on the phone, and he said, okay, so you're going to be bringing that stuff? I said, yeah. First of all, I said, and I kind of whispered as if he could hear me. I said, I've never known anybody at jail before. Is he allowed to have a razor? And the guy just laughed, and he said, oh, yes, ma'am. He's fine. He can have the razor. And I was like, okay. So I said, well, now when I come down there, I kind of sort of know where the Halava jail is, but where do I park? Where do I walk into? And so he gave me the scoop of where to go and where to park and which office to come into. So I ran and got the stuff, and I took it to the jail. And I went into where he had told me, and they had on the log the phone call that had happened. They had everything documented in there. And they said, well, let us go get him, and then you can meet him in the visitor's room and give him these items in person. So I'm like, okay. So they said, just sit over here, ma'am. So I sat down, and they came back like a half an hour later, which I was curious why it was taking so long. And they said, Mrs. Rutter, we're not kind of sure where he is. We can't find him. And I said, oh no. And so they said, yeah, we're confused because it's Sunday, so there's not any in and outgoing vehicles, such as deliveries on, clean uniforms and linens and stuff like that. No deliveries of food or anything. So we've got several people that are out looking for him. So they said, did you want to just leave it? And by this time, I was really curious. I mean, it was Sunday afternoon, nothing to do, so why not sit there in an air-conditioned office and wait, right? So I said, no, I'll just wait here. It's okay, I've got nothing to do. It's fine. So I sat there and was reading a magazine, and after about 2 hours or so, they came back and they said, we are thoroughly confused because we have records of him being here with us, and of course, like we said, the phone call was in the log, but we can't find him at all. And we've searched everywhere. So we don't know where he went off to because we've covered everywhere. So they took my phone number and they said, okay, yeah, we got it here on the log. It's the same as what he used to call you. And they said, we'll call you if we find him and let you know. And I said, well, should I leave this stuff? And they said, no, because since it's so close to where you live, do you mind if you just pop over and give it to him? And I said, okay. And they said that way we don't have to be responsible for where it is, where it goes off to, and then it could be a mess for us, a headache. So I said, sure, I'll just take it with me. They never called, so I'm guessing they never found him. So this would seem odd, but what is the kicker is that was, like I said, about 78, maybe 79, which was what, 88, 98, 108, 118, 40 years ago. 40 years ago. And I thought of him periodically, off and on in my life. And I was at Pearl Ridge Shopping Center one day, about maybe 5 years ago. So it was like 35 years after it happened. And I looked really different, older. And at any rate, I was walking in the upstairs, and it's kind of got an open section, like many indoor malls do, an open section where you can look down and see what the people that are walking on the lower section, and you can also look across your vision, line of vision can shoot across the open area and see what's going on the stores on that side, right? So I was walking this direction on the upper section on the right hand side, and something made me look across to the left hand side, and walking this direction was the guy. And he turned his head and he looked me in the eye, and this big grin just broke out all over his face. And of course, I'm sure my look was because not only did I know exactly who he was, but he still looked like he was 20. He was in the same outfit. He did not look a day older. He definitely did not age in 35 years. And I kind of blinked my eyes like that, and I started to run to go towards there. And when I blinked my eyes, as I was kind of running, because I was like, I can't believe this. I was going to run towards him. He just disappeared into thin air. And I thought for sure he had dodged into the store right where he had been standing. And so I ran in there and I looked, and it was a tiny store, and I said, did a guy just come in here about maybe 6 foot tall, sandy, blondish brown hair, and real cute smile on his face? And they said, no ma'am, no ma'am, we haven't had any customers at all yet this morning. And yeah, he disappeared into thin air. And so that scripture came alive for me, that sometimes we entertain angels when we're unaware of it. And I've had a couple other little experiences with what I do strongly believe were angelic beings just walking around amongst us. But this is the biggest and best experience that I had with a guardian angel of mine. And sometimes I can feel him so close and see him smiling at me in my mind's eye. So I do know that he watches over me. And I do love him. So, anyhow, hope that you have a run-in with a real live angel one day, because it is awesome. It leaves you feeling so grateful for the experience. Anyhow, I love you all. Please have a great evening. Thank you for sharing some time with me today. I did keep it down to only 17 minutes. Love you all. Sending aloha from Hawaii to everybody. And give me a thumbs up if you had a fun story time today. So I've got some fun things that are coming up this week. Working on some little schemes and plans on how I can shoot it and how I can make it fun and interesting. So please keep the notification bell clicked. Love you. Bye-bye.